Hello and welcome to the shop. Without any ado, let's just get into it. Let's make a cane. Starting with a blank for the handle first, this is a piece of chechen, and I'm just squaring off the end here. We're going to drill it, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. So what I've got is a 1-inch Forstner bit mounted in one-way Talon #1 step jaws. And then I've got a Baxter Tools 1-in-8 TPI to Morse taper adapter, so that I can make sure that I am centered exactly in the chuck and centered exactly on the lathe. And we're going to drill about 1 inch deep. There we go. Now let's see. I think we pushed it dry. I didn't have it really tightened enough. I think we pushed it in a little bit. Put it back out. Tighten that down. Everything is still perfectly aligned. I know I'm dead center here. I know I'm dead center here. That is good. Let me find my tape measure. Okay. Kind of eyeballing my depth, but I see what my target is. There we go. Yeah, we had the right grip on it that time, so it didn't push down. So we're at 1 inch deep here. Now, this gives me a couple of options. I can hold this piece on this chuck in expansion mode right now, or I can turn it around and turn this down a little bit before I flip it back around and put it in expansion mode. This is going to be my cane handle. I make this first because the height of this is going to have an effect on the total height of the cane. All right, so we've swapped chucks. We've got the head of our handle mounted here, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this down and get a little bit of shape to it before I flip it around and we do the top part of the handle of the cane. Now we have a very rough shape of our cane handle. It's obviously a bit too big, a little bit too bulky, but we're going to take it down. We're going to start shaping the top, and we're going to think about some kind of an insert just to give it a little bit of appeal, a little character. And I think I have a small cutoff of some exotic burl, some Australian burl that might fit the bill in regards to giving it just a little bit of shape and character. I don't want to over tighten this because I'm cracked, and I did. I cracked it. Did I crack it? No, I did not crack it. I don't want to over tighten that because I don't want to crack the. I don't want to crack my handle. I'm probably going to change the shape of that just a little bit. Alright, it's moved a little. That's okay. So here's the thing. I know that that's drilled an inch wide exactly. So I need to make sure that that outside remains at least 1.25 inches. And we're right at 1.25 inches. So that's as thin as I can make that, so that I make sure that that's not going to crack with the shaft of the cane inside it. Now, the shaft of the cane will be glued inside of it, and that will help bolster it. How does it feel? That's better. We need to start kind of rounding this and moving towards the top, center of the top there. So let's see how that feels. That actually has a good feel to it. We want to work towards the center here and think about an inlay. We'll get a cut off of some red coolibah burl, and I think that would be neat to set a disc of that in here. So first thing we're going to do is actually cut our recess to hold that. We have a pretty good firm hold on there. We're going to take it easy, small cuts, and just get ourselves a little recess here. I'm going to take a beading and parting tool and use it like a 1/4 inch square edge scraper. Looks pretty good. I'm going to take a measurement right now. We're at 1 3/8 inches. That's going to be the diameter of our little insert. So we'll swap out chucks and get set up and cut our insert and bring it back. Well, this is some remains of cut off of some red coolibah burl, and it's got a lot of figure in it, a lot of bright color in it. Actually, really nice wood to work with. I want to take a known straight edge and make sure that that's flat. I got to do a little bit of work on it, and actually the most appropriate tool here is the square edge scraper. So that we make sure that we're going to have a good bonding surface. And one thing I don't want is I don't want this super smooth. I will probably give it a rough hit with some sandpaper at 80 grit so that there is some material for the glue to bite into. And the reason for that is I'm going to be using a flexible CA glue. I'm going to use Parfix 400C Flex, which gives the wood an opportunity to move. So we have our 1 3/8 measurement here. Square and scraper is good for real fine stuff, but I really don't like moving a lot of material with it. Can be a little too aggressive. Come in with that 3/8 inch spindle gouge and just get down some bulk, and we'll come back with the square edge scraper and work our way down, small bites at a time. All right, tool rest is a hair low. We should be too big, which is what we want. We want to get that to be a pretty close fit. In fact, we want it to be an exact fit. Very close. Inside here. That's it. That's 10 seconds. Like this, fine out. We're going to give this a good contact in 6 inches. Okay, we've got our little coolibah insert, our little coin. And that's exactly the fit that we're looking for. Is it goes right in, but it also should drop out, and that gives room for the glue to get in where it needs to be. This is the 400C Flex for Parfix, and I'm going to take that all the way out to the edge because I want some squeeze out. I desire squeeze out. I want it to go up the sides, but I also need to make sure that it covers the entire bottom. We're going to spin that. We have good glue contact all the way around. That's what we're looking for. And then we're just going to bring up the tailstock. Apply a slight amount of pressure. Let some fixative work its way in there. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes and keep turning. Okay, that glue's had enough time to set. We're going to do a little bit more work here, a little shaping before we start working up at the top. I think we're going to add some texture and a little bit of embellishing wax before we put finish on it. Kind of give it a neat look and feel. We're going to make just a little bit of work here, a few cuts. All right, so we've got a little bit of an inclusion right there, a little spot. I think what we're going to do is just take a tiny bit of African blackwood shavings and work it in there with some CA glue. And then we will sand a tiny bit before we put a texture in right here. Let's feel, yeah, that's not too pronounced. It just gives it a little bit of a change, a little bit of feeling there. So let's grab the African blackwood and some Parfix 3408. It's a little messy, but what you want to do is kind of just work that very, very dry blackwood shavings down in there. Just kind of make sure they fill that void. There we go. And then we'll sand. And that should actually make that so you don't even realize that I filled a hole. It just looks like it naturally belongs there. So we'll get a little bit of sanding done.
All right, so
we just sanded at our first grip just to make sure we had any rough edges gone. And what we're going to do now is bring in a texturing tool. This is the Crown miniature spiraling tool. I believe I have the spiral head on it. And we're going to make sure that the lathe, we're only going about 500 RPM. Nice. We have a nice spiral there. I like that. And the reason I want that is so that there's just a little bit of feeling, a little bit of texture to this. It's not. We'll outline our texture. There we go. And before we step up to our next grip, we are going to put some gold embellishing wax in the texture. Now that gets everywhere, but when I start sanding, what it will do is it will remove the high spots. But we're working that wax down into our grooves from the texture. And I found that this just gives a really neat visual effect. It's very appealing to look at. It just is something that gives just a little bit more fancy. And the reason I wear the glove is because this stuff gets everywhere. See, I accidentally bumped my finger. I'm going to have gold everywhere for the next hour. So we come back and I'll take a paper towel. We go at about sanding speed, about 500 RPM. We just start trying to wipe away the excess. That is a wax, so that produces a little bit of heat. You get a little more speed. Now I'll make sure that it gets down into the holes too. And we'll bring it over the top here. Any low spots in our burl should get a little gold luster to them as well. And then we're going to start sanding. And that should take that down off of the surface, but leave it in the grooves. We're going to start down here where there's no wax, so we don't smear the wax where we don't want it. As you'll see, as soon as that sandpaper touches the wax, it loads it up. take a look. Oh yeah, that's cool. That is cool. The sandpaper got into all the grooves and into the low, or the sandpaper, the wax got into all the grooves and all the low spots. All right, that's good. I'll go ahead and finish sanding, put some finish on this, and we'll come back. Look at that. That is just gorgeous. I like that combination of the red mallee in the middle there with the chechen, and then that just set off with the gold embellishing wax. Really, really attractive. Looks good. Now, the reason I make the handle first is because that's drilled up inside about an inch, and then there's an inch or so more material above that. So what I've got to do is measure the height of this, subtract the height of what's hollowed inside, okay, and add that to the total length of the cane. Likewise, I use these cane tips. I use them because they last the longest of any I've found on the market, and they look the nicest. So this cane tip is a total of 1 and, well, let's say 1.85 inches tall. However, it does lift up off of the ground a little. So I've got to take whatever that depth is, which is 1.1 1/110 inches, and it was 1.85 inches tall. So that means 3/4 of an inch is what the length this foot adds to the length of my cane. So I've got 3/4 of an inch here. This is dry. Plus, that is 7/8 deep. That is 2 3/16. Oh, let's do this in decimals. So 7/8. So 0.875. We got 2.18. So we want to subtract 0.875. So that puts us at about 1 1/4 inch of height that this adds from the top of where that cane's going to seat in there to the top of the handle. 1 1/4 inches. Plus 3/4 of an inch here. So that's 2 inches of height that I have to take off the length of the cane itself in order to have it be whatever length I want it. This cane I think we're going to make at 34 inches of length, which means I need to cut my shaft of my cane down to 32 inches. Okay, here we are at 32 inches. So the first thing we need to do is cut a tenon to fit in our foot. That's going to be 3/4 of an inch, and it's going to be whatever that depth was. I don't remember the measurement now, but we can take it again. So that's going to be 3/4 of an inch by 1 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to fit this directly here. Make sure that it fits perfectly because the cane's going to be wider. This is 3/4 of an inch. The canes are going to be 1 inch, so there's going to be a little shoulder, and that's going to make that transition perfectly smooth. So put it in here. Bring up our tool rest. And we will come in with a beading and parting tool, and we will make sure that we are at 3/4 of an inch, and then we'll get the height of that, and we will fit our foot and make sure that that's where we want it to be. Perfect. And we can see that we need to take it down just a little bit to match up so that that matches and blends right there. So we'll go ahead and get it back between centers. We have centers very nicely established. That's a Bestwood Tools Texas spur drive. Pretty handy. And we can actually take our caliper and measure that outside diameter, and that is just under an inch. It is rubber, so we don't want to squeeze it. So why don't we take that down to an inch, and then we'll kind of massage it from there. So boom, 1 inch is the diameter we want our cane to be, not 3/4 of an inch. And it doesn't seem like a big difference, but when you are using something like a cane daily, that little bit of 1/4 of an inch width is going to be the difference between night and day. It's going to be the difference between a cane lasting for your lifetime and being handed down to the next generation, and a cane that gets broken. And that fits beautifully. That is absolutely perfect. That joint right there is clean. That's what we want. So, foot is fitted. We won't worry about the head until we get there. We now have the width of our shaft of our cane established right here. We're going to make sure we're locked in. And we're going to switch tools. Okay, we're done turning, and we have sanded up to 180 grit, and we're going to try a little something here. I've got some homemade iron acetate, and we're going to see if we can do a little bit of a gradient ebonization. So we're going to try to darken it and get it to kind of fade as we get down towards the bottom. So this is just iron shavings in, or metal shavings in vinegar. And we'll see if I can kind of take my ebonization at the top here, kind of fade it in a way. Maybe we'll sand and see if we can get it to kind of lighten up that way. A little bit heavier up here at the top for a little more penetration. And you know, if it doesn't work, that's not the end of the world. It's still an idea, and we're going to try it. So we'll see what happens. Back to a little bit more sanding. I'll come back when we're putting finish on it and assembling our stick. Okay, we have our cane in its entirety already sanded, and we're ready to assemble and then put some finish on it. So first things first, the bottom, I do not put any glue or anything on here. I like to send the cane with a replacement tip in case that one wears out. So I don't want to glue it or put anything on it. I will, however, put some boiled linseed oil on it and seal that bottom edge. So that fits, and then we want to make sure we have a fit here, and that's perfect. That will get some wood glue in it, but first we're going to get some boiled linseed oil onto the shaft of this cane. I prefer for tool handles, and this is my personal preference, tool handles and canes, things like that. In general, I finish with boiled linseed oil because it's kind of the standard for one, and two, the customer can always touch up and fix a boiled linseed oil stain. It's common, you can get it pretty much anywhere. A little 220 grit sandpaper, and just hit it with an oily paper towel, and you've refinished your cane. So should something happen, should it need a little bit of refinishing, it's very, very easy and accessible to anybody. Let me get the boiled linseed oil. We'll put some finish on here and glue it together. Almost time to get a new can. That one's just about empty. Boiled linseed oil is a staple. It should be in any wood shop, whether you're turning or making cabinets. BLO is pretty much an industry standard wood finish or step in finishing process. Like I said, for things like tool handles and canes, it's my go-to finish. Should a customer ask for something different, of course I would provide it, but I really don't see any reason to replace the centuries-old application of boiled linseed oil for this particular application. I don't think it's not broke. Why do we need to fix it? You know. So we'll get our paper towel nice and saturated. We want to make sure that this gets a good deep drink, and our little kind of a variegated finish, our ebonization, that kind of worked. I like it. I think it's an interesting effect. It's not as dark as I might want it to be. I may need to work on my formulation of my iron oxide. I might need to put more iron in it. I'm not sure, but I kind of like the effect we get here. And wait until you see how it sets off the Brazilian rosewood, the chechen head. I think the contrast, or the kind of the fade blend from the top to the bottom, I think it's going to look really, really neat. So that's good and oiled up, and this will of course sit out in the warmth in my shop for a day or two to really cure, but we can still glue the lid in now. I'll be right back with that. Now, where for this insert I used the flexible CA glue. For the actual cane head, I'm going to use wood glue, and the reason is we kind of want this to be as solid and permanent a bond as possible. This isn't going to move the same way that little insert might, and we don't want it to. We want to make sure that that gets a good 360-degree coverage, just like that. We'll put our foot back on, and over the next few hours, as that oil begins to polymerize, that'll kind of make that seat and stay there. But there you have it, and that actually is really attractive. Let me clean out a little bit of overflow glue. That looks really good, and I can kind of line the grain up. Of course, there are two different species of wood from different parts of the world. The oak is from here in North Carolina. The Brazilian rosewood is from Brazil. But the coloration with the iron acetate, look at that. We can kind of line grain up there. Actually move that a little bit more. That looks cool. So that coloration there, I'm loving that a lot, actually, that transition between the two woods. And this is perfectly usable as a medically necessary cane. Got a good size head, a little short for me on purpose. I need a 36-inch cane. This is going to be 34 total, and that's because not everybody's 6 feet tall. And since I'm not making this for a specific customer with their exact height, what I'm doing is making a couple average heights. So I'm going to make some 34s, some 36s, and some 32s. That way I kind of cover the bases, the general averages. But there it is. There is a cane. I am very happy with how this turned out. I think it's quite beautiful. I will be making a few more for sale at an event coming up at North Forge Gathering 6. But I thought I'd share the process with you. If you have any questions, please message me and let me know. One thing I did do that is new to me is this is a tool that has been developed by Mark Saleh. And this is his cane cutting tool. This is my version of the cane cutting tool. It's just, he showed me how he made his. I came home and made mine the same way. What this does is it transfers all the pressure, instead of in towards the wood, which wants to bow and warp, you move you make your cuts, push all the pressure towards the headstock. So there's no cross pressure. It doesn't vibrate. You saw I didn't use the steady rest. I could have, and it probably would have made things a little faster, but I'm teaching myself the use of this tool and using it efficiently, and I think that it probably cut the time it takes me to make a cane in half, and as I get more efficient with it, it'll cut it down even further. That's all I've got this time. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like button and subscribe button, please, and remember, just one more pass means put the bowl gouge down.